Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the February 13th, 2018 meeting of the Hampstead School Board. Calling to order at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you. Melissa?
Kathleen Aberzizi.
Here.
Jason Cipriano.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell.
Here.
James Sweeney.
Here.
Karen Yusenka.
Here.
Pinkerton Academy Student Liaison, Sophie Cherichello.
Here.
Also seated at the board table tonight is Assistant Superintendent Dr. Roxanne Wilson.
Here. Will you all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You see before you one set of minutes from the January 30th, 2018 regular meeting. If you need a minute to review them, please do. When you're ready, I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments, Melissa?
There are no requests tonight.
Okay, thank you. Administrative reports, Mr. Collins, please.
I'll make this extremely brief. I don't have anything to add to the report except I still get more and more preschool and kindergarten registrations. So thank you to the people out there that are getting the word out. So we're looking forward to getting to meet all of our new little cherubs at the right time this year. We are doing a mailing later this week, so just parents should be aware that the mailing will have the school assessment reports, which will be different for each grade level depending on the assessments, but that'll be explained in a cover letter that's going out with all of the reports. And most importantly, if there are any questions about any of the reports, please contact the child's teachers or me. Ms. Poulin will take care of it. Thank you.
Great. Today, we still have 476 enrolled, is that correct?
It'll be 477 as soon as you get back from vacation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mrs. Denola?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to just report that we received a very wonderful accolade for one of our students, Isabel Povey. Isabel is an 8th grade student who won the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards. This is a young woman that at a very early age saw a need to feed the hungry, rolled up her sleeves and started creating meals for hungry people through many different venues. This is a national award that she is in line to receive. She is receiving a very sizable monetary award, a medallion, and an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. For national recognition during April 28th through the May 1st. She will be in the running for the national award that has even more monetary grants. She is just a very, very special young woman. I hope you get a chance to meet her. They will be doing an official presentation at our Hawk Awards at the end of quarter 3. And I know Penny is doing an article on her as well. So Isabel continues to do us proud. On Monday, we have our second session of personal learning plans for our students. Students will be working with their advisors and their principals and their guidance counselors, working on the progress reports of their personal learning plans, of setting goals, which is supportive of our district goals of empowering students to understand how they learn putting goals in front of them and monitoring them throughout the year. Our winter sports has come to a conclusion, and right now they are having their winter sports awards banquet. Our B team won the Tri-Town County Championship. The girls' A basketball team made it to the finals. And I will just say, the referees every time, will shake my hand and just say, we really enjoy coming up to Hampstead. Your kids are just a class act, and they have sportsmanship, whether they win or lose. And that's, I think, to me, a great accolade of our kids. So congratulations to our winter sports students. Our STEAM Family Night is next Wednesday from 5:30 to 7:30. I hope you all can come. This is our third annual STEAM Family Night with many presenters that were not there last year, and new and exciting things for all families to get their hands on, some fun, exciting STEAM activities. And our numbers hold still at 415. I know I have some new enrollees coming in after vacation.
Great, thank you. And congratulations to Ms. Povey on that. That's quite an accomplishment.
I will tell her.
Dr. Dancy?
Good evening. In my report, the highlight of my report this month has been very busy in that we have 4 requests for proposals for summer projects out, and we had mandatory site visits for 2 of those this week, and also a voluntary site visit for a 3rd one. There's the 4th one being internet connection did not require a site visit. But all of those were last Monday, and we have probably a dozen vendors for the 2 E-ratable RFPs that are out there, and we have about a half a dozen for our server replacement project. And so we're very excited about that. The opening of those bids will be next Thursday over at the SAU beginning at 2 o'clock. We'll have 3 bid openings in the afternoon, and anybody's welcome to attend those. Speaking of E-rate, this is our first year of applying for E-rate funding. In previous years, we did not qualify under the older rules, but this year we did. And 2 of the projects are covered under what's called Category 2 E-rate funding, which is infrastructure upgrades, and that can provide us what they call a 40% discount, and what that amounts to is around $52,000 reimbursed to the district for these projects that we're doing this summer. So I'm really excited about that. Category 1 funding deals with internet connection, and it can get us a reduction on our monthly internet connection rate, and so we'll qualify for that. We'll see some real savings beginning July 1st in that, once we get all that finished up. The other thing is tomorrow we're opening up our Facebook page, and I already have content towards the building project on it, and the coffee, the seniors' coffee is already on it. It just hasn't been opened yet. I am having a little bit of difficulty with Facebook getting us to be verified as the district. Very few of our utility bills say Hampstead School District on them. They either say Hampstead Central School or Hampstead Middle School. And the fact that we're managed by SAU 55, it's very difficult to find something official that says Hampstead School District. According to their list of acceptable items, that's what I was typing back there as a response to my letter to them. But we will become the official verified page in a few days. I'll get that taken care of. But we'll be open up for business tomorrow, and even though we're not the official, we're not verified yet, we're still the Hampstead School District page. That is pretty much the highlights of my report. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Sure.
The Facebook page is great. It'll help get communication going. Do you have anything to report from Pinkerton?
Yes. Unfortunately, on February 5th, Pinkerton Academy released an email to all families and students that Headmaster Griffin will now be leaving on March 2nd. It was thought that he was going to finish the year and end in June, but his new job position was moved forward. So Pinkerton's acting headmaster, effective immediately, is Dr. Powers. He was the current Dean of Students and Support Services. His job is being filled by Mrs. Tartarella. She was in administration for sophomores. Also this week, 5 Pinkerton students have received honors for the 2018 Scholastic Writing Awards. Our students and their entries were selected from more than 780 submissions. We received 3 silver keys out of 98 that were awarded. Also, Pinkerton is participating this week in Granite State Respect Week. Granite State Respect Week is to help with unhealthy relationships and help administration, teachers, and students acknowledge unhealthy relationships and what they can do to prevent them. This week they'll be having announcements, surveys, raffles, informational booths to get awareness for this. For sports, Pinkerton's indoor track team won Division I states. The girls hadn't won in 37 years. They won, and Pinkerton boys and girls have never won at the same time, so that was the first. Also, Pinkerton's varsity ski team yesterday came in second for their state competition.
Nice. Okay, I have a question. The unhealthy relationships, is that between students?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. But also like a teacher and student inappropriate relationship, it's all about respect and different situations.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Gary. We're ready to hear about transportation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here to report out the progress of the home-to-school general pupil transportation contract that expires at the end of June of 2018. I'll go through the process and how we got to where we are today. So in late November, the board graciously approved transportation consultant to come on and help us develop a request for proposal to go out to bid for this contract. We've listened, we've taken notes over the past few years to what parents' complaints were, student complaints, and also from the schools. And we tried to incorporate that all into the next contract by putting it out there. So some highlights in the RFP. All buses will be brand new at the start of the contract, okay? And the reason why we specified brand new, under the current contract, they were to be no older than 5 years. We wanted to make sure that we were always putting our children in the safest bus possible. So at the start of the contract, they'll all be brand new. With that comes some equipment upgrades. Okay, you'll see PA systems in the buses, which it's hard to believe that we didn't have them in the buses currently. We made that part of the contract to include that in this round of buses. That's interior and exterior PA speakers, so the bus driver can properly communicate without making it seem like they're yelling at the kids every time they need to offer instructions. We've also added additional surveillance on the buses, so we've doubled the security cameras on the buses for any incidents that we have to go back and review. There'll also be higher definition than what we currently have. Something I feel very excited about launching, we made the carrier take on the responsibility to provide a GPS application to parents. Okay, so this application will provide real-time data as to the bus's location, okay, and it'll be identified with the unique student ID from our student information system. So not any person in the public can just pull up the whereabouts of the bus. You have to have your unique student ID number. This will allow parents to have better communication, which is always good for us. So in case of a bus change backup, parents can be notified through this software, in addition to what we already offer through the schools.
Mr. Gary, how many buses are we talking about? How many are we asking for?
9 total.
Okay.
Yes. And I will go over the bids briefly, okay? So we packaged it in 2 different options for companies to bid on. We had option A, which was only Hampstead, okay? And Hampstead being part of the SAU, we made option B to partner with Timberlane for any sort of discount that may be offered. Felt it was good to price it both ways because maybe a company wanted to get their foot in the door and bid on a smaller contract with Hampstead, Maybe they only wanted to do Hampstead, maybe they wanted to do both, but I felt it was good to give options. Okay. So for option A, which was Hampstead only, we had one responder to the RFP, and that was our current contractor, First Student. Option B, we had two responders to the RFP, First Student and Student Transportation of America. And still, First Student was the lower of the two on option B.
And option B is Hampstead and Timberlane. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So I can open up to any questions if you have any.
Do you have any pricing on both of those?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that
Today?
with you. Good question.
It's the most important question probably, right?
Yes, yes. Option A, which was First Student, being the only bidder. The annual cost for the home-to-school transportation routes, and this isn't taking the data for field trips and whatnot, the primary driver of the cost is the home-to-school transportation. The annual cost for next year was $658,351.80. Option B, we had First Student came in at $587,638.80. STA came in at $590,166. As you can see in option B, we had a really competitive bid process because the delta between the two is roughly $2,500 on such a large contract. Very close.
Yeah. Do you have anything else before we ask questions?
Nope, that's all. I have the report out.
Okay. About how many went out? Did you try to look at any more coach lines?
Yes, we put, in addition to the bid services picking up, which is a lot of big contractors pay for a bid service to pick these up from different school websites, whether it's a construction project, a bus contract, food service. These were picked up throughout the country, basically for transportation companies. We also directly emailed the bid package or the RFP package to 6 different vendors. And still, we only had 2 respond for the bid.
Okay. And all of these 3 prices include everything that you mentioned before?
That's
New buses, GPS?
That's correct.
Surveillance? Okay.
Yes, yep.
Does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Gary at this time?
Mr. Gary, how does this compare to our current cost? These options, how do they compare to our current cost?
From this current year to next is a difference of about $115,000 on the home-to-school route.
So the the STA First Student difference, now we have First Student, their buses don't currently have what we're looking for, right? So these are new buses they're purchasing?
That's correct. They would have to retrofit the current bus fleet, but they weren't allowed to use the current fleet because we made it a mandatory requirement for at the start of the contract. Any company that was to get the contract would have to start with new buses.
Does STA currently have buses like this, or would they have to retrofit?
With them all being new off the lot, this is how they would order them, right? So we're getting our buses brand new right from the manufacturer.
Okay.
We found after talking with different people that it's a lot easier to just go ahead and order the bus with the equipment. You can imagine if your car, if you tried to wire it up for different things after the fact, it's not really economical compared to getting it off of the dealer lot.
So lead time on a bus like that, that's going to fit in with the contract start date? They're going to have to order 8 new buses.
9.
9 new buses.
Yes.
That could be worked out in the time frame of the
Yes, I mean, if that does suffer any sort of delay, both companies will be able to start the contract with those still coming in. But the intent is to get them as soon as possible. You can imagine that takes some time to manufacture these. So as long as we're putting the order in by late winter, early spring, we should be okay.
Mr. Gary, So that typically when I run RFPs on the corporate side, you know, for option B, you're talking about a 0.4% difference, which is really negligible in the size of the contract that we're talking about. So how did the two companies compare in terms of their capability and other factors? If pricing is really roughly equivalent, what are some of the other factors and how do they compare?
We've called different districts, right? So STA and First Student, they're the big companies in New Hampshire, specifically southern New Hampshire. Usually, if you ask a district, they're going with one or the other. We found going through the references, going through their qualification package that they submitted, both offer good services. I don't think there's a disadvantage to going with either one. It's just, we've had First Student, so it all depends on what people's view is. So far, are we happy with the service? I can say that in my short time being here, I feel they've held up their end of the contract, and they've specifically done some really good work in the past few months as far as management of the local branch. But all things being equal, I think they can both deliver on their end of the contract.
For my personal information, do you happen to know of any towns locally that uses the Student Transportation of America? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
STA?
Just give me 1 second so I can.
That uses what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The Student Transportation of America, STA?
I believe Londonderry, Bedford, Hooksett, Auburn, Candia
Okay.
are a few. They have quite a big client list, much like First Student.
All right. I have a bunch of questions. Are you ready? GPS application for parents, is that something that we would have to run on our servers, or is it going to be on their servers? Are they going to be handling it, or would we be handling it?
In order for this app to work, it does have to be held by the carrier, by the contractor.
Okay.
So they would be responsible for any software implementation costs, hosting it on their servers, and actually updating the information for it to be accurate.
All right. And do we have any assurance that that would be a secure server as far as the security goes? The firewalls are up to date and everything?
We would expect it to be.
Yeah.
And as far as I would ask for the full implementation plan to protect, obviously our students' personal information.
Okay. So what would be the benefit of going with Timberlane on this? I mean, I don't really see why we would bid out with the Timberlane district. I mean, aside from cost, are there any additional benefits?
I think just the management, even from our office, right? You can imagine if we have to deal with two different contractors versus one. I can see some time savings in the office and some efficiencies by dealing with one point person for both districts. But other than that, I would look primarily at cost.
And with First Student, I mean, this is a franchise. So it's the First Student of Plastow that would be handling it, correct?
I don't know if they're I don't think it's a franchise. It's a bigger corporation. They have local branches, but I don't think it's a franchise like a Subway or a
All right.
Burger King.
So because what I've heard about is, the difference between the different First Student offices based on location. So I was under the impression that perhaps they were all under different management and like a franchise, but.
Yeah, they have, each district typically has a local storage yard and maintenance garage. And usually in the area, they have a district general manager. So their district office is out of Salem for First Student, but they do have the local yard, which is in Plastow, close to the Timberlane High School.
Okay.
But a lot of it does come down to the management of the yard, is what they say. And I feel the culture down there, in my short time being here, I've seen a culture shift with the new local manager.
Okay.
It's coming to place. I can't say enough good things about the things that are going on down there.
All right. As far as you highlighted the big things in the RFP. As far as when it comes time to actually sign the contract, I've seen the current First Student contract, so I know what's in there. Are there changes that are being made to that?
There will be to reflect the new things we put in the RFP.
Okay.
Right, so we'll have to have that contract language reflected in the contract. The language from the RFP has to go right into the contract.
All right, but there can be additional things as well, that, like we already currently have in the contract. For instance, like we're not, right now, we're not contractually obligated to use First Student for our sports. However, we do have some pricing that's listed in our current contract
Yep.
for certain things.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, one thing we've done differently too is we've added a different line on the athletic and field trips pricing. So before we had cost per mile, cost for wait time, a minimum 1 hour charge. But we actually added in an in-district 1 hour or less charge.
okay.
They maintain the same price for the minimum as the in-district, but we did put it in to attempt to, try to minimize those costs that are in town. It just so happened to be they priced it the same as their 1 hour minimum.
And as far as the penalties for not supplying a bus as scheduled, that's still in there as well?
That is in there, and we've made it clear to the contractor that when we had a pre-bid meeting, that this is going to be a per occurrence liquidated damages charge, where we've been looking at it as per day, if a bus can't be filled. If they cannot perform the task in the morning, that's an occurrence. If they cannot provide a bus in the afternoon, that's an occurrence. So we're making it advantageous to the district and enticing the contractor to fill the bus seat. We've also added in a liquidated damages clause for any time that their communication systems are not working, right? So we have some rural areas, mostly in the Timberlane district, but also in parts of Hampstead. Sometimes they lose communication on the two-way radio. We've asked them to upgrade their system. In any instance of, lack of connectivity, there'll be a $50 per occurrence charge as well.
So as far as the pricing goes, it would be a contract with Timberlane and Hampstead and the bus company, should we go that route. Is that correct?
That would be for the pricing reflected in Schedule B, yes.
Okay, and so as far as penalties, if Hampstead is missing a bus, does that come off of the Hampstead portion? Is it kept separately, or is this going to be like something in the SAU budget?
It's two separate, each district will have their own contract. We did this for basically the economy of scale, is trying to get more by pricing the buses all together. So the invoices will be charged appropriately to each district. So if Hampstead is missing the bus, Hampstead will get credited that amount.
I don't want to speak for Mr. Dowd, but typically when I've done these tandem contracts before, you have a clause in it that says that in this case, the first student is agreeing to, even though the contract is with Hampstead, the rates set forth are with the understanding that it's Hampstead and Timberlane. And if for instance, if Timberlane terminated their contract, that would typically trigger a repricing of our contract, because they'll say, hey, we gave you those good prices because you got both. You can't then, 6 months from now, Timberlane drop out and Hampstead say, oh, hold our pricing. So typically, they're two separate contracts, but there's clauses in there that would protect them in the event that one doesn't stay for the duration of their contract term.
I see, so it's really just bulk pricing more than it is a three-person contract or a three-entity contract.
Right, and we've also, as far as, if anybody's worried about defaulting on the contract from the carrier standpoint, we have asked them to carry a cost of a performance bond. So in the case that they do default and cannot perform, we would be compensated.
Any other questions?
Did the transportation consultant help draft new contracts up, or is it?
He will give us the beginning document for Attorney Dowd and me to look at. We'll pass it through our process, through legal and through the superintendent. So yes, he's assisting us with developing the contract.
Mr. Gary, or actually Dr. Wilson, whoever's, I don't know who was at the meeting, but I want to make sure my understanding is correct. If I understood correctly, and this is only relevant to this board because we're considering this option B, but Timberlane has expressed their desire to go in on the dual contract. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that they've asked Mr. Gary to go back and talk to First Student and STA
Right.
to see if there was any better pricing. So they're still in the process right now. Timberlane has not made a decision, knowing that Hampstead, also has an independent decision to make. But I believe the only option here is if you do go in with First Student, that it does allow for a little bit of a savings for both districts.
Are they looking at STA also?
Yes, they've actually, Timberlane has tasked us with reaching back out to both vendors and seeing what we can come up with a price to negotiate. That was the only action that we've been given so far.
Same for us. Same for us.
And you said as far as the option A, the $658,000 figure, that is $115,000 more than what we're currently paying?
Yes.
So, okay.
I have one question. The GPS, now, is it going to tie into pickup patrol? So if my kid's on bus 25, making up a number, and he does car pickup one day versus bus 25, or I have him go to someone else's house on bus 37, is that going to change? Or he's
No,
always going to seem like he's on that bus?
On a
Or she.
normal day, it's more of tracking the bus, not the student. And there is no integration that I'm aware of between the two software.
Well, some kids might go to a grandparents 3 days a week and daycare, whatever, I don't know, 2 days a week. So really, parents would like to actually know where they are. But if they're always going to be on that one bus, because that's how it's programmed, you know what I mean?
I foresee it being,
That would be a lot to manage.
no,
Believe me.
I just don't know if the software can do that, right? So, without even selecting the vendor to figure out exactly what software we're going with, because they both have proprietary software, it's a tough question to answer. But what I foresee is being able to track that bus on your normal schedule.
Normal schedule.
Right. So if he's going to, let's say, little Johnny's house, I don't think the software is going to reflect that.
The GPS is just for the bus itself, it's not a student scan card?
No.
No, okay,
It's just to see where the bus is.
right. Because they do have the scan cards too,
Yeah.
as well. So just, all right.
Okay, what I would like to do is, since we don't need to make a decision on this until June 30th, by then, we have some time. I would like to, and I don't mean to send you on a wild goose chase, but we did this with the food service, and it worked out okay.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I would like to ask you to please go out again and see if there is some other bus company out there that may be interested in Hampstead only.
Happy to do so.
Just as there was a food company, everyone said, oh no, we can't get someone, we're only 2 schools, but we did. And we may have to go out of New Hampshire. Essentially, isn't there a bus company in Haverhill who is predisposed sometimes to working with smaller school districts?
Having known someone that worked there, being me, I have not seen that company service anybody but the Haverhill Public Schools.
Oh, okay.
I think any side work they do is usually after hours, chartering different events, but I haven't seen them go outside of Haverhill for home-to-school transportation.
Okay. Well, I guess since like I said, since we have time, I would like to see if you could just cast a wider net and
Yep.
see if there may be someone out there
Happy to do so.
that we haven't looked at, and would also give, if anyone else needs to, but I would like to at least take a look at the current contract that we have, so that when the RFPs go out and a new contract is drafted, I can make the comparison between what we have now and what we're looking at.
Okay.
So I think maybe a realistic date would be, you tell me, we meet March 27th is the organizational meeting again after the elections. I think that might be timely enough?
I think that gives us plenty of time to do that. Yes.
Okay. Good, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Happy to update you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calendar, the 2018-19 calendar. Tonight is the second read of the calendar, and this calendar reflects the information I shared with the board at our last meeting, the HAA request to have school start on the 28th and to have students attend school 3 days that week and have the Friday of that Labor Day weekend off. Pinkerton is in school, though, on that Friday. So the open house for parents would be the Monday, the 27th, because we moved one of our professional development days to the week prior. The calendar also reflects our request for an additional early release day in November for parent conferences at middle school because more time is needed, that full day plus a half day. The calendar reflects a professional development day in January that coincides with Pinkerton, a March professional development day that also coincides with Pinkerton's professional development day. I do have a request, though, tonight regarding April, moving that early release day to the 9th. Now that Pinkerton has finalized their school calendar, they also have an early release day scheduled for 11th, and it just doesn't work out, both districts having an early release day on the same day, so I would request tonight that we move that early release day in April to Tuesday, the 9th. Any questions, comments?
What is the, that early release in April, what is that early release for?
We use it to address our school and district goals, for example, development of our performance assessments, validating our performance assessments. We look at what our school goals are and what professional development needs to be provided to meet those goals.
Could we move it to the 12th? I mean, early release on a
That is
Friday
a
different
possibility,
than
but I'm also
middle
looking
of
at
the
the
week.
number of professional development days, parent conference days that are already scheduled for Friday. That's why I was suggesting moving it to a Tuesday.
I'd agree, early release day is nicer to have it on a Friday than midweek.
So too many days on a Friday means that end of school period on a Friday, they're going to miss that consistently, whatever that class is or that session or.
Though at
that's
middle school, we do
concern.
have a rotating. Yeah, go ahead.
To keep that in consideration, we rotate the schedule, like the first early release day, we have a schedule of classes in a certain process, and then the next one, we switch it up so the same class isn't affected by having a shorter class period. Teachers would rather have a full class period than just 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes for the continuation of the students' learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what day early release is on, you're telling me, because you're just moving around.
As far as middle school goes, but then at
For middle.
Central School, they got the Unified Arts.
So that's what
So I
we're
think
talking about.
it's just the Unified Arts teacher schedule that it affects for the students is all.
Yes, we don't always want the first grade, for example, to be missing art on Fridays.
Yeah, I've been hearing complaints about missing chorus, but that's because of snow days, so, you know, what can you do? So you're requesting that it get moved to the 9th instead?
Yes, please.
Do you know what time Pinkerton does early release?
12:30.
Oh, you know. Yeah, that wouldn't work at all. Okay.
Sophie, what did you say?
12:30.
Okay.
Because on our early release days, we dismiss middle school at 12:30.
Yeah.
Excuse me, noontime.
We do 12 and we do 12:45, so there's absolutely no way.
No,
So we have to move it.
we have experienced that in the past. Just doesn't work.
But we need to approve this. We need to take action on this tonight. Are we in agreement that this is okay? We take a vote?
With the early release day on the 9th instead of the 11th?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll motion that we accept it.
Huh?
I'll motion that we accept it.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the proposed 2018-2019 school calendar?
With the change of the early release to the Tuesday.
To Tuesday the 9th. Okay.
Thank you.
It was unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you,
Thank you, Doris,
Mrs.
and thank
Bucco.
you to the teachers' union, who was very instrumental in working with us on this.
Dr. Wilson?
Yes.
Strategic plan?
As part of your goals, your board goals, one of the things is that, you know, we keep you apprised with what we're doing with the strategic plan. And so what I've done here is, this is kind of our cumulative progress report. I think it has a good sense of what we've been doing for each year. So I just continued it, and that way it kind of gives you the continuum. And if you look on each goal, you'll see February 18th, what we've been doing up to this point. And one of the things that we've decided to do as an administrative team is whenever we try to work on these things in a systematic way, we have better results, and I think we don't miss steps. So we decided to do kind of an action plan for each goal. Instead of doing some things just kind of haphazardly, we just decided to put it all under a plan. And we've been meeting for about a month on our action plans on each one of these goals. So we'll be able to share that in probably another month's time. We're still putting the finishing touches. But we have a couple of years left of this strategic plan, and there are some things that we need to focus on. We've done a great job at really looking at some of these goals and the support of the teachers in moving some of the initiatives. And so if there's anything that you want to ask me, I wasn't going to go through each one, but this is available. So, you know, if anyone wants to ask a question, we can certainly, unless you want me to highlight each one, we can answer any questions you
I don't know
have.
if it's necessary. We've all read it, I think.
Right.
Familiar with it.
So, you know, basically, you know, we're looking to continue each one of these goals. We continue with the STEAM activities, trying to help with kids understanding a little bit of the 21st century skills. We're still working on communication, both externally and internally, and having the Facebook page be another thing that we've opened up. You know, we opened up the app last year. We did a new website design the year before, so we continue to build on the things that I think are moving us forward. We are looking at, you know, the thing that we're looking at now is we really want to have kind of a systematic way in which children can feel safe, secure, that they can take risks, a way for us to respond in a systematic way if there's a crisis or if there are children and families in need. And so with Karen Gallagher's help and Francine as well, looking at designing more than just a quick, you know, here's what we have to do, what's the system of care that we're going to show. And there's a lot of resources with the Department of Ed in the Office of Student Wellness. And we're starting to use some of their resources. We're talking to other districts who have developed some of their systems. And so we're going to work on that in this district as well. Do you have any other questions?
This was through 2020. on
Yes.
to 18. So it looks like we're going to probably accomplish most of these
Yes.
goals.
Yeah,
We're well on our way.
We're on track.
And selecting a way to measure schools, I see in 2018, we're going to be looking at starting to review the benefits of the tripod survey as
Yes.
another tool to use.
Yeah, you know, I'm very familiar with the use of it in Timberlane, and the more that I see, the more that I think it would benefit our district here as well. So I'm having the administrative team learn more about it, and Christy Michaud, who is also kind of the person in Timberlane, is going to be coming and sharing just the journey that Timberlane has had with the tripod. But it's one more resource. We've done our survey, we've done the Education for the Future, which is more of a climate survey. This is more allowing students to give feedback on what it's like in the classroom. And we use it in Timberlane as a way for teachers to get feedback on their own craft and practice in the classroom. And the results we see, we don't see the individual teacher results, we see the school-wide results. And we use that to drive our goals. We've just finished 7 days of instructional rounds in Timberlane based on the survey and what the schools want to work on, which was very valuable. And, you know, we do instructional rounds here in the district as well. And so, you know, we thought maybe to tie it all in together with some of the survey information that we're getting. So we are going to look into it and see whether or not it's something that we might want to, and we'll give you some more information on it as well.
That's what I was going to say. At the last board meeting, Dr. Metzler had said he thought it would be worthwhile for us to review it and get familiar with it. So my question is, can you provide us with some of that information?
Yeah,
Or direct us where you would like us to research it?
Yeah, and part of that is also the administration here has to understand it too. So we're going to get all that information and we'll share it with you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Dr. Wilson on the strategic plan, the progress of it?
When do you write goals past 2020? When does that process start?
We usually start at the 2020 year, so 1920, this ends. We'll probably, you know, come to the board and say, you know, do you want to continue working on the strategic plan? You know, last time that's what we did. It wasn't, the process that we took built on what we already did, and we checked into the vision and the mission, and those things seemed to work well with the community, so we didn't have to go out and reevaluate all that. We just reevaluated the goals. But it was a process that included surveys and bringing in a steering group, and it was a year-long process. I can't believe that it's already 2 years into this.
I know.
I was going to say, it'll be here sooner rather than later that this board will have to begin contemplating refreshing the strategic plan and the strategic vision as we go into the 2020s, which for those that are up for re-election, you'll be on the board through, potentially into the 2020s when we got to look at 2020 to 2030 and what do we want to do strategically in our district.
Right.
So it's coming.
Let's just get through this first.
It's coming.
Okay, Jason?
But I have to
Be
say,
great. Just move forward with this one.
I'm very proud of the fact that, we keep this front and center, and that's part of what my job is, although every time I bring it up, they're like, okay, let's look and see what we're doing. Right? But it is front and center, and I believe that it's the foundation of the work that we're doing, and it keeps us accountable. So, the reporting here, I like doing that because it's telling you we're keeping it front and center.
I would agree with that. That's what's guiding the board, and that's what's guiding the district. So it probably is the single most important tool we have moving forward as a district.
Okay. So this is my half-year report, and we've been doing it August and February. So if there's another point in time, it seems to work well, because then we get through the year. I can report out what we've done for the first half, and then I can report the second half.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, I just want to recap the deliberative session, which was held on February 6th. First, I'd like to say thank you to our moderator, Neil Reardon. I think he conducted a very well-run meeting, very professionally done. I'd also like to thank Hampstead Cable for generously giving of their time again. I had a look at it that night, actually, and the visual and the audio quality was much improved. Thank you, Hampstead Cable and Dr. Dancy, who serves on that commission, who worked with them. There were approximately 66 resident voters in attendance that night. I think that's probably typical, what we've been getting. We know that most people watch from home. So I think it's what we expected. I also think that our team of construction experts were on hand, and they were able to answer all the questions that were raised. I think that's one thing that made the evening also move smoothly along. In the past, the board would receive questions or technical questions, and we really didn't have substantial answers that people in the industry were able to give to our residents. So I think they asked questions. I think people walked away. I've gotten feedback, felt that they were very enlightened. They felt that they received the answers. No one was tiptoeing around anything. We didn't say, gee, we'll have to get back to you. So everything was in real time, and I think it went very well. I'd also like to thank Dillard Collins for a very impactful message as you spoke to the conditions in Central School now and what we might be looking at in the future. Again, feedback was, I thought it was very nice that someone inside the school, especially the principal, was able to step forth and give his message and his perspective on what's happening. Much more, authentic than us speaking to it. So thank you very much, Mr. Collins, for that and for all the time that you've put into this. I'd also like to thank our Vice Chair, Jason Cipriano, who presented the 2018-19 school budget. A lot of work went into that. I'd also like to thank our Superintendent, Dr. Metzler, Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Roxanne Wilson, and all the administrators and the directors who helped build this budget over the course of several months. I'm not sure that everybody realizes that this is a process that begins in October. A lot of thought is given into it, a lot of input is put in, and we shave off what we feel we need to do to be good fiduciaries to our taxpayers, so that when you receive the budget, you're getting basically what we absolutely need. So thank you for everyone who worked on the budget. And Jason, thank you for your comprehensive presentation. At the end of the evening, each article was forwarded to the warrant. By unanimous vote of this board, it was forwarded with a recommendation for passage. And that's it. And I think probably the big thing of the night was that to announce to everyone that the election takes place Tuesday, March 13th at the Hampstead Middle School from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening. And we encourage everyone to exercise your rights and get out and vote on that day. I think that recaps the deliberative, unless anyone has anything else to add. Okay. Renovations and improvement project. A couple things. I just want to give you some dates that are coming up. Also, first, February 19th, on Monday, we have a Hampstead Seniors Coffee Hour. I'm going to put this up. I don't know if cable can see it. It's at Hampstead Central School from 1:30 to 2:30 on Monday. Our construction team will be there to answer questions. There will be light refreshments, and tours will be available. We did this really. Anyone can actually show up, but we really did this with the seniors in mind. For folks who may not like evening meetings, you don't want to be out at night, you don't want to drive, it's an afternoon meeting. So, we hope to get a good crowd. We're going to answer all your questions. The architect will be there, school board members will be there, and you can see for yourself by taking a tour through the building. It is an early release day, so the students will not be in the building. And room is being made in the parking lot, so there will be ample parking for you also. So just wanted to point that out and say we hope to see our seniors there. Okay. March 10th, we have tours. It's a Saturday from 11 to 2 at the Central School. Again, that's everyone in the community is invited to attend. If you haven't been through the school recently, you want to come and see what we're talking about before the vote on the 13th. Again, the construction team, board members, administrators will be present. So please try to make an effort to come out on March 10th. I think that's it for the really important dates. What?
The mailer, we need to address.
No, I'm going to do that. I was doing the dates first.
I thought you were skipping over it.
No, I'm not, but thank you. The other thing we do, in past years, this board has voted to expend a certain amount of money so that the board produces a mailer that goes out to every household in Hampstead. That usually goes out, say, the Thursday before the Tuesday of the vote, so people have it and they can look at it over the weekend. So tonight, what I'm asking for, I'd like to entertain a motion that the board will expend not more, or up to an amount not to exceed $1,700 to produce informational material.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Well, can I just ask a question for clarification?
yeah.
Is this on the entire warrant, or is it just specific articles that we would be?
We talked about that today, and it seemed like the only two, the main things were Article 2 and Article 3, the budget.
Okay.
Last year was different. Last year we had 3 contracts
Right.
and the budget and this, so there was more material on it. I think this year, we had our committee this afternoon, we decided to do the building and the budget.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, back to the vote. All in favor? Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Okay, policies. For second read and adoption, we have 10 policies, including policy JH, which was tabled at the last board meeting.
Right.
So maybe, how about we do this in reverse, and we'll deal with JH first?
Okay.
To see, and as I said, frankly, I don't want to have a policy committee meeting here at a board meeting, but I would like to hear if anyone, especially Kathleen, who had some concerns, and which was good actually, because it forced me to go back and take a look at this. So I have a comment at the end of all this. To look at it, and if things are still up in the air that we can't come to agreement on, I'm going to suggest that we just push this back to the policy committee and deal with it then, rather than at the board level. So should we all take a look at JH first, please? And I'm going to ask Kathleen for your concerns or whatever you'd like to say about it.
Yeah, I am inclined to push this back over to the policy committee. There's some wording in here that I'm not entirely comfortable with. I think that we should kind of revisit it. And then some different, to me, it's more procedural, some of the stuff that's in this policy, but it's some of the how is this possible type of questions that I think need to be concerned, and to make sure that we're getting a really full view, to make sure that we are catching any students that may need assistance, as well as being understanding of students' situations. So, so that we're at both ends of the spectrum taking care of everyone appropriately. So I just think it would be best revisited in policy and then come back to the board again.
We can bring that back. We have another meeting
Next Tuesday.
Next week, right?
It might be good if someone calls me to give me a heads up so that I'm ready for the policy committee of what some of the exact questions or changes that you'd like.
Okay.
All right, so if you want to give me a call,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Well, after rereading this today, the one thing that really popped out, it seems like the definition of truancy, and that's what this is hinging on, refers to an unexcused absence. And we have 11 things here that you can be excused for. So after reading through this over and over again, it seems to me that just my opinion, that the only reason a child would be truant is that a parent has neglected to contact the school to say where that child is. Either we're on vacation, or the child is sick, or the child has a doctor's appointment, or the child was visiting an aunt and didn't get home in time, missed the bus or whatever. Other than that, I don't know what truancy is. And this goes back to the old thing. Years ago, before all this was in RSAs, I remember, 20 years ago, truancy was basically, you're only truant if either your parents or the school did not know where you are. You're basically skipping school. That was it. And this, to me, is a fancy legalese way of saying the same thing. If you don't know where your kid is, they're truant. Otherwise, the parent knows and the school knows.
Are you directing that to me? Because the principals don't need to answer that right now.
Well, they're sitting there, so they're
Right, but
they're not responding.
we have to, in our policy, we have to define what truancy is. So we define it by the law. So in the policy, we have to say, what are our definitions of excused? I mean, that's part of what we have to do.
Right, and there are 11 of them.
That's right. It's very hard to be truant in this district,
Yes, it is.
which
That's
is,
why
we don't have
that's
a
my
lot of-
point.
We do not have a lot of issues with truancy. But
Right.
we do, in some instances, if someone is staying home willfully and the parent is allowing it. But by the time we get there, there's been many conversations with the parent about that situation. And we do find that in some situations, we might have a student who doesn't want to come to school. And, we do everything we can to get them to come to school. But
Right, and I see that under here. That's when you bring in the teams and work with the guidance counselors and everything.
right,
Okay, mine was just a comment, and you made my point for me. I don't think we have much of it here.
we don't,
Okay,
we don't.
so we're on the
So-
same page.
Yeah, so, we can bring it back and, I can show you in the law where that's required. So, and then we can have a discussion at that point. Okay?
Okay, everybody happy? Bring it back to policy. And Kathleen, you and I get to go over it again in the policy committee.
I have one question
Okay.
that you guys can bring up.
Okay.
So currently, when my child is sick, I leave a message. It says in writing, so what's the process for that? Because here it doesn't define what that process is. Is it a form? Is it a note? Is it a form that you put online? So it's a current change to our process. Because right now, I leave a message, kid's sick, this is what's up,
And this does say it has to be in writing, which
because
goes
it's in
back,
writing.
which goes back to the old days. If your child was out on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm not going to write a note.
And they went on Wednesday, you had to write a note saying your child was out on Tuesday because they were sick.
Right, that's pretty typically what every school would do. So, I don't know
So
how-
2 days in the future, when my kid comes back, I'm going to let you know that they were sick. But it might have been better to know that right up ahead on the voicemail. So the teacher knows maybe, you have a kid that has the flu, watch out. You know what I mean? So is this going to be what's going to happen in writing?
we verify, pretty much all the situations that come in, that we're notified of. But, I'll bring that back to the principals in terms of if this is a change in practice. Because I know the secretaries probably know half of the parents calling in anyway. And so,
Right, but if I
They
don't
do
put it in
verify.
writing, that's not excused.
This is the definition according to the RSA, but I completely understand your point, and yeah, it'll be something that I'm sure we will discuss more in policy. And
Yeah.
when we bring it back to you
Clarify
again,
that.
hopefully we know. But, so, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to make a motion that we accept on second read policies JIC, JIA, IJOC, JLIF, GCO, JICK, KE, EC, and EBBB, which is all of the policies except for JH.
I'll second.
I don't mean to
Okay,
upset your
discussion.
mojo of reading it all, but I had a question about JICK.
Okay. Before we leave JH, anyone in the room have any comments they want to make? I saw Mr. Collins. Do you have something you'd like to add, please?
What you're asking is a procedure, and we need this policy approved and then the procedure will be adapted, it will all go into the handbook. But what you just asked, when you make that phone call, then everything is cared for. The reality is, we want to know a child's taken care of as soon as possible in the morning. There's systems built into both school offices to ensure the safety of children, make sure that the child got where they were expected to be. So that's the reason you may get a phone call from the school within an hour that, you know, maybe the child's home sick, and we understand, maybe you were busy dealing with a sick child, but it's just part of our security protocol as well, just to make sure a child's safe. So, and the phone call suffices.
Right. Thank you.
And Jim, you had a question about JICK?
So,
So for people who know what it is, it's pupil safety, violence prevention, and anti-bullying.
maybe I missed it, I didn't see it. Paragraph 8, the procedure for internal reporting requirements. What is the procedure for external reporting requirements? When do you call the police? Is that in here at all?
You said which paragraph?
Roman numeral 8.
8 is,
Oh, 8.
talks about internal reporting. But you read it in the news, schools get the police involved when they think it's criminal. Should that be described in here at all, a process for that? I looked over the whole thing and I didn't see when to.
I'm just trying to find it somewhere in policy here. I mean, we do know that in some instances, we do have to report sexual harassment and what we might deem as significant when it comes in terms of bullying to the police. And we do have to make what's called an ED 317, which is a form that notifies the police of an instant where there was such a significant event, we need to have police involved. And that's part of our memorandum of understanding with the police department. But I'm not sure I see, I have to see where it's connected here. So that I would have to look at when it is exactly that this rises to the level of a police report, because not all of it does.
No, I just don't want us to try to handle something when it should be handled
Right, but
by
we
someone
do
else.
have to, anytime there's an instance of bullying, it has to be reported to the superintendent. So
Correct.
we do get that report. But I'd have to see what the connection is, and if it's not in here, we probably should be able to, we should be saying something about the connection to the ED 317 or notification to the police. So if you didn't see it in here, I would have to look at it in depth, because it is 9 pages. So I'm going to put a note.
Didn't see it.
I was just looking up the RSA. It's RSA 193 that we cite here, and I know that most of this policy is taken directly from that law.
Well, yeah,
I know what the practice has been is that, you know, if it rises to the level of concern to get the police involved, then that's what will happen. So I don't know if there's,
And sometimes it's just notification. It's not necessarily that the police are involved,
right.
but they're notified.
So, I mean, as far as the policy goes, I mean, I don't know, are you looking for specific, like absolute reasons why this would be the police getting involved? Because, I mean, there's all the procedure, there's all of the investigative procedures. I mean, would
Well, I know we-
it suffice just to say that if there's reasonable concern, then the police will be notified?
Possibly. I just know it was
Yeah.
glaring that it talked about internal reporting, but nothing external. And knowing what I've read in the news about bullying and what happens, what I read a lot is that it warrants the police getting involved. And I didn't see it in there, so I thought it'd be
Oh,
appropriate.
I mean, I think you bring up a good point, and I think we do have to be clear about sometimes it does rise to that level. I know that, under our memorandum of understanding with the police, which actually we just started looking at as we're going to redo it because it's old and it needs to be redone. And it's just an understanding, again, through law, what we need to report and what our relationship is with the police. And part of that is we have some discretion over what's considered simple assault. It's not mandatory, but in some cases, a simple assault, we're going to be notifying the police. But that's always been discretionary to, as a reporting. Some of the other things are mandatory reports that we have to go to the police on. And bullying, I think, is one of these discretion things. So maybe we just need to put that somewhere in here. But I want to look that up for you and, at
Okay,
least.
for tonight then, what I'd like to do is, can you amend your motion, Kathleen, that pull out JH, student attendance, and also 6, JICK? We'll push both of them back to policy.
All right, I am willing to do that, it's not a problem, but under paragraph 12, response to remediate substantiated instances of bullying. It's RSA 193 F4 2K. And in the second paragraph here, it says consequences for a student who commits an act of bullying or retaliation shall be varied and graded according to the nature of the behavior, the developmental age of the student, his/her IEP, and the student's history of problem behaviors performance. Remedial measures shall be designed to correct the problem behavior, prevent another recurrence of the problem, protect and provide support for the victim, and take corrective action for documented systematic problems related to bullying. So, this is, like I said, this is directly from what the law is written. My opinion, that covers and implies that if the police need to be contacted, then they will. But if you'd rather have it pulled out and relooked at, I'm okay with that too. If you think that needs more.
Caitlin?
I'd be in agreement with Jim. I'd like
Yeah.
to see it pulled out until we can at least determine, confirm that it's not in here anywhere else that we're missing, but also,
Or maybe put the language in that there is a possibility that it may rise to the level of having to be reported to the police. And, that at least gives notice that that may happen.
Okay, so let's give these two precedents at our policy committee meeting on Tuesday, so we can kind of wrap these up.
So
Okay,
one on
so,
a different policy.
I'm
what's
sorry?
that?
I've got a note on a different policy.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay,
I'll try to keep it relatively
that's
brief.
okay.
I'm talking about policy KE. Policy KE is public complaints. This has been top of mind for me of late. And first and foremost, I think we obviously have an obligation to our students, but we also have an obligation to our employees to make sure that they're not in a hostile environment where they can perform their duties without fear of unsubstantiated false accusations that would otherwise taint their careers. So I just wanted to make a couple of things clear on KE, both in general discussion for the board, but also for members of the public that may be watching or listening or following this discussion, because there is a distinction there, and there's a distinction within this, and I'm not sure that everybody understands actually a couple of distinctions. First and foremost, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, business administrator, and so forth, those are SAU employees. And as such, they're handled, if there's any concern with their performance or any concern with actions that are contrary to our policies, those would be addressed by the SAU board and not by the Hampstead School Board individually. So if a complaint did come in, if there was some issue with something that Dr. Wilson had done, that would not be handled by this board. That would be handled by the SAU board separate, because it's an SAU employee and an SAU matter. The other thing too is the policy doesn't state this. I don't know if it has to. I think it's more informational. But it's entirely likely that the person who brings a complaint against an employee will never know how that complaint is actually resolved, particularly if there's disciplinary action involved. Our employees have the right to privacy, and there are cases where it can be waived and so forth, but the most common outcome is that you're not going to find out what happened. It's going to be handled, in a non-public session, and that it'll be resolved if, in fact, it's proven to be substantiated, whatever the accusation is. So, I think that doesn't necessarily need to be, overt within the policy. I think it's more just informational. Should someone have a concern, should someone report malfeasance by one of our employees, that employee does retain their right to privacy as the complaint is investigated and then ultimately adjudicated.
Good point.
So, I'm not asking necessarily for any changes. I just want to make those things clear, and like I said, mostly for the public that's watching to understand that, because there is some confusion sometimes with who the employee works for and how these things would be adjudicated. So, thanks.
Thank you for that.
Okay, where are we on this motion? We're
Does-
going to leave, we're not
well, does
pulling out
anybody else have
KE, right?
any
No,
other
I don't
Okay.
think it needs to be, but
So we're going to
questions
pull
or
out,
comments? No? So, okay. So I'm amending my original motion to exclude JICK and JH, but to adopt all the remaining policies on second read.
second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
you.
Unanimous. Board comments and correspondence. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. I'm pretty brief.
You're never brief, Jason. You just have to stop saying that.
Deliberative.
It's okay.
Was that deliberative? No, actually, you know what? The only other thing I'm going to say is this, and it's a broad appeal. For everybody watching, listening, for those that will read Penny's recap of the meeting, we had roughly 80% of the town show up in November to vote. This is a civic-minded town, civic-minded community. I know people care about voting. Typical March elections, we get somewhere around 22, 23% voter turnout. You go from 80% in November to 22, 23%. We have some really critical items on the ballot. We're not going to recap them because I think everybody watching knows, but we have some really big items, really important items that affect the entire town. It's really important, so please just come out and vote. That's it.
Thank you. Caitlin?
Since we last met, obviously deliberative. I attended a construction committee meeting this morning. Last Thursday, I was present for some hours of tours at Central School. Had a good conversation with a couple of town residents who came in, and they were able to see the building. Kind of following up on what Jason said, I really encourage anyone who wants to expand their knowledge and really see what's going on at Central School to come to some of the tours that are available. And to reiterate what we've said, if you can't make it to those set hours on the 10th, or the senior coffee hour next Monday, reach out to Central School. Mr. Collins is more than willing and has put forward that he will give tours as needed. So that's it.
Thank you. Kathleen?
I went to the SAU and I took vouchers. I think I did that a couple of times. And I definitely have gotten a lot of positive feedback from the community regarding the Article 2 proposal and all of the information that was delivered at the deliberative session. The members of the community that I have been speaking to certainly understand the need and are incredibly supportive. So I'm really hoping that the voting population understands as well.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah. I spoke to some people that didn't vote for it last time. They thought it was, in their words, a tired old plan. But they said they are committed to it this time. So I hope we have more people like that. I hope some leaders in this town come out and voice their opinions that I think they have about wanting this plan to move forward. And they just don't vote. They encourage other people to vote. Maybe some of the business leaders in this community also. So.
I have nothing new. I think everything that is important has already been said by everyone. So thank you. Consent agenda, Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
We do not have any personnel report tonight, so I'll just skip to my report as well. And thank you, Sophie, for sharing the news about Dr. Tim Powers, and I think it's important that we recognize the work of Griffin Morse, and we wish him well on his new position. We've not been updated on anything about the Pinkerton hiring of the new headmaster, and as soon as we hear something, we'll let you know. February 19th is an early release day. We have a lot of work being focused at both schools on the performance assessments, and also with having Susan Fitzell come back to continue her work at the middle school, looking at differentiating instruction and universal design for lessons. So we'll look forward to that. I do want to, as a follow-up from last meeting, I know Dr. Metzler asked me to make sure that the schools are looking at the progress we've been making in addressing positive classroom management. The principals continue to monitor our practices. We continue to sharpen our skills. I do want to underscore that our schools do not have a problem with behavior management. Our teachers are using positive strategies and have utmost regard for our students. They are responsive, and they are working well together and sharing ideas about how to successfully monitor and to have successful behavior management strategies at their PLCs. They are focused on quality instruction in the classrooms, as they always have been, and we have a very dedicated staff, and I appreciate all that they are doing in response to improving our skills and in looking at this. And I encourage, if there are any isolated incidents out there, for parents to call and let us know so that we can address any issues that might occur in our continued quest to improve our schools. We have February vacation coming up, February 24th through March 4th, and we use that as an opportunity to refresh our schools. We use it to deep clean the schools, and we know that flu and cold season is here. But our numbers are showing nothing that we would consider unusual, very typical, very low numbers right now in terms of what we're seeing for flu-like symptoms. But we're also being very preventative in making sure that we have a new hand washing policy, and we're trying to get that note out to all the kids. We've put additional hand sanitizer stations in. We are doing, through the work of Mr. Christos Koufos, we're doing additional cleaning and disinfection routines have been added to the schedule. We're doing all the things to be proactive, and I just wanted the board to know, as well as the public. And if there's any change in that, we will let you know. Family Steam Night, again, very excited about it. Some of the new things that are going to be happening there that night, so encourage everyone to come. And we're still looking for positions. Anyone who's interested in being a paraprofessional, we have some openings, and anyone who wants to be a sub, either a substitute teacher or a sub for a paraprofessional, we're still looking for folks who are interested in doing that. So that's what I have to share.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second. Any discussion? Any questions for Dr. Wilson?
No, manifest has come through.
Okay. If not, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda?
Thank you.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I don't see any other business or old business. However, we are going to have a non-public tonight under RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2, letter I.
So moved?
Second.
Yes.
Mr. Cipriano?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mrs. Giuseppe?
Yes. Cable, we probably will not be making any decisions tonight, so thank you very much.